All right, strap yourselves in, everyone, because things are about to get speedy. We're going deep into the world of Sonic the Hedgehog 3 for this deep dive.
Oh, yeah.
I am so hyped for this movie, and you sent over this awesome Entertainment Weekly interview. It's with the director and Sonic's voice actor. So I think let's unpack it, see what we can figure out about this upcoming film.
Sounds good.
There's some really juicy stuff in here. I mean, we're talking Keanu Reeves as Shadow, double the Jim Carrey, and there's even like a surprise connection back to the director's early career.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, this is going to be interesting.
I am so ready.
Let's dive in.
So one thing that really stood out to me from this interview was the director, Jeff Fowler's history. It's like full circle destiny kind of thing.
Yeah, it really is. This isn't just some director like hopping onto a big franchise.
Yeah.
This is someone who has been in the Sonic world for a long time. So tell me more about that.
So picture this. It's like 20 years ago. Fowler's a character animator at Blur Studios, and they're creating animation for the Sonic games. And you're not going to believe this. One of his first projects was Shadow. And now here he is directing him in a blockbuster film.
Oh my goodness. Talk about like a surreal experience. I can't even imagine.
So with that in mind, how do you think his background in animation, and especially his early experience with Shadow, how do you think that's going to shape how he portrays the character on screen?
That's a really great question.
Yeah.
You know, thinking about it. Knowing what we know about Fowler's background, I think we can expect a really nuanced and faithful adaptation of Shadow.
Yeah.
Hey, think about it. He's not just directing the character. He's bringing like a super deep understanding of Shadow's movements, his personality, even his essence to this film.
Right.
It's like he's been preparing for this role his entire career.
It's true.
And speaking of Shadow, Fowler really sees him as like this element that shakes things up in the Sonic universe.
Oh, for sure. He even uses the phrase dangerous element to describe what Shadow brings to the film.
Wow.
And like, this isn't just hype. If you know the games, you know Shadow. He's got this brooding nature. He uses firearms and chaos control. It's like a whole different vibe from the previous films.
Yeah, the previous films were definitely very lighthearted, like very family-friendly adventure vibes. But bringing Shadow into the mix is definitely raising the stakes for everyone, both in the story and visually.
Big time.
What do you think are some of the challenges for the filmmakers to adapt a character like Shadow, especially while still trying to appeal to a broad audience?
Oh, that is the challenge they have to overcome, right? They need to find that balance. Like, staying true to Shadow's kind of edgy personality while making sure the film is still accessible, you know, for younger audiences too.
Right.
And I'm really curious to see how they tackle that. Will they tone down some of his darker aspects? Or will they find like creative ways to present them? Maybe they'll use his backstory to give him some emotional depth without resorting to like, you know, explicit violence.
Right.
It'll be interesting to see how they walk that line.
Yeah, and to walk that line, they cast Keanu Reeves as Shadow.
Perfect.
I mean, come on.
It just makes so much sense.
He's got that intensity.
Yeah.
And the mystery that Shadow just embodies.
Absolutely.
And the article even said that he like came to the role super prepared.
Oh, yeah.
Like, asking questions about Shadow's background and motivations.
Wow.
So he clearly cares about this.
I think that attention to detail from both Reeves and Fowler is a really good sign. It seems like they're really committed to making this a really authentic portrayal.
Totally. Okay, but hold on. There's more. This next detail honestly blew my mind. So Jim Carrey isn't just playing Dr. Robotnik. He's also playing his grandfather, Professor Gerald Robotnik, like the scientist who created Shadow.
Whoa. Okay, now this is where things get interesting. It's not just a double carry gimmick. It actually gives them a chance to explore like the whole Robotnik family legacy. You know, how did Professor Gerald's ambitions and his work influence Dr. Robotnik to become a villain?
That's so cool. Like,
Yeah.
It adds this whole other layer of complexity to the story.
Oh, yeah.
And apparently Carrey was super excited about this dual role.
Really?
He was totally up for the challenge,
That's awesome.
even though it means more time in makeup and more filming.
That's a testament to Carrey's dedication.
Right.
He's not just like putting on a different costume. He's creating two completely different characters with their own motivations and nuances.
Right.
I'm super interested to see how the writers weave these two Robotniks into the story. Like, what kind of family drama leads one to be a scientific genius and the other to be a supervillain?
Oh, yeah.
Will we see flashbacks or parallel storylines?
Me too. And this ties in with what we were talking about earlier about legacy and how Shadow represents Professor Gerald's ambitions and his tragic past. But before we go too far down that rabbit hole, let's shift gears to Sonic himself for a second. Ben Schwartz, who voices Sonic, he had some really insightful thoughts about how the franchise has evolved.
He did, especially about the fan reaction to that very first Sonic trailer and that, how do I put this? That memorable original design. That was really
I
something.
mean, the one that launched like 1,000 memes.
Yeah.
It's hard to forget that.
Yeah.
But what's amazing is that Paramount listened to the fans, and they redesigned Sonic.
They did. It was a bold move.
It was.
Like redoing a whole character design.
Yeah.
But it showed a real commitment to the fans and the source material.
Definitely.
Not every studio would have done that.
Absolutely.
It really set a new standard for how studios can collaborate with fans.
Totally agree. And on a lighter note, Schwartz thought his role was just for that initial test reel. He never imagined he'd become the voice of Sonic.
Oh.
It's crazy how things work out sometimes.
Sometimes one little audition can turn into something extraordinary.
It really can.
It reminds us that even the most iconic characters have humble beginnings.